Hello, I'm Mr. Unwin from the Science Department. I'm just going to run through the GCSE science courses that we offer here at Penistone with you, just guide you through the course structures, the grading system that's used, the assessments that we do as we go through the 2-year course, what support students get, and also how you can support your child throughout the 2-year course. So I hope this is useful. Okay, so we offer 2 science GCSE courses here at Penistone. Obviously those decisions have already been made through the options process. So the majority of students will be doing combined science, which we call trilogy, and some groups of students will be doing the separate science course. So I'll run through both of them, and then at the end I'll just highlight the key differences. So with combined science, it's 2 GCSEs awarded at the end, so 2 GCSE grades. And I'll talk about grades on the next slide. That will be assessed through 6 examinations. Each of those will be an hour and 15 minutes. So there'll be 2 exams for biology, a paper 1 and paper 2, and they'll be the same for chemistry and physics as well. So each subject area has 2 papers through which all the course material is assessed. There's no coursework. That'll be taught through 10 lessons per fortnight. There'll also be on top of that home learning and preparation, revision for assessments, short-term and long-term assessments that we do throughout the course. We use a rotation system. So for example, a student might start with biology and they'll do 25 lessons of biology and cover a particular topic. They'll then have a short-term assessment on that, and they'll do 3 relevant home learnings through those 25 lessons. And then they'll rotate to their chemistry teacher. So they'll have a specialist teacher for each of the subject areas. And when they're at chemistry, they'll do 25 lessons of chemistry. The separate course follows a similar pattern in terms of the way it's taught, with a few minor differences. And at the end of the course, with separate, the student gets a separate GCSE grade for each of the science areas or science disciplines that they study. So they'll get a grade specifically for biology, chemistry and physics, rather than the total marks for those 3 subjects being combined as it is in combined science. So separate as well has a few more lessons because we've got an extra GCSE being awarded. So instead of 10 lessons per fortnight, there's 15 lessons. So this affects obviously students' options, and students will be spending much more time down in science, and the demands of this course is a little bit more for each of those subject areas. So the examinations are an hour and 45 minutes. Again, there's a paper 1 and a paper 2 for each of the subjects. The 1 to 9 grading system is used in science as other GCSE subjects. Slight difference between the 2 sciences that are studied. So with trilogy or combined science, we use a 17-point grading scale, as you can see there on the left. So students are awarded 2 GCSEs for their combined science trilogy award. With separate science, the students will receive 3 GCSE grades. So for example, for biology, they'll get 1 grade from the 1 to 9 scale that you can see there. So for example, a student could get a grade 6 in biology, a grade 7 in chemistry, and a grade 8 in physics. Those grades are standalone, whereas in combined science, a combined grade is awarded, so it'll either be a 7.6, 7.7, for example. The assessment structure in GCSE science has 4 main components, so home learning, required practicals, end of topic tests, and then larger practice exams. Home learning is a really vital part of the learning process, and we really expect students to spend a lot of time and effort on their home learning. It's a real opportunity for students to consolidate what they've been doing in class. So we're looking for students to spend about an hour on their 40-mark home learnings. There's 3 per rotation, and they should use their books, their notes. It's not a test, so they should ask questions of their teacher, of their peers, to really help them complete the home learning. It's a good opportunity to reflect on what's been going on in the classroom and also get used to answering past paper questions. Students will be peer and self-assessing these in class, so they'll get to see the mark schemes and get to think about how their questions and their answers are marked as well. So a really important part of being successful at GCSE is spending time carrying out the home learning, past paper questions, but also marking them in class and getting some really detailed feedback on how they're answering the questions and what the key bits of information is that they need to use in those questions, in their answers, to help them get the most marks. So a really important part of the process. Required practicals are determined by the exam board. These are practicals that every student must take part in. There is a set series of required practicals for each subject, chemistry, physics and biology. Students carry out the practical and then they have a short test the next day. Again, these are assessed in the exams at the end of the year.
so students get to experience past paper questions on these and see what sorts of questions the exam board are going to ask of them for each of the particular required practicals. The end of topic tests are our short-term assessments. There's one of those per rotation. They're past paper questions again, around 50 marks. This is done in exam conditions. So it's a little mini exam at the end of each rotation. So 25 lessons worth of work is then assessed through a short-term assessment. And then finally, it's practice exams. These are longer assessments and reflect the style of exam paper that students are going to see in the summer exams. So past paper questions again, 75 marks for combined science, 100 marks for separate science, and these will be done in exam conditions in the exam halls. So students get a real good experience of what those exams are going to be like at the end of year 11. Okay, so we've outlined the course structure, we've gone through the grading system and what the assessments look like, but a really important document that we give to each student as they progress through the course for each of the topics that they do is a learner pathway. This will be in the front of students' books, so each book they get, they'll have a specific learner pathway that covers the 24, 25 lessons, rotations that they'll be doing. It maps out clearly the sequence of lessons, the broader topic area that they're studying, and also each lesson is broken down into key learning objectives. So they know, for example, when they do the first lesson of biology on animal plant cells, they need to label and describe the role of each part of an animal and plant cell and compare the structure of animal and plant cells. So the tasks that they do in lesson in their books will reflect those learning objectives, and they tick that lesson off when it's finished. And after doing 5 or 6 lessons, they'll have a home learning to assess their understanding of that work that they've been covering. And they can put the percentage and the grade that they've got for their home learnings in there, along with their required practicals and their short-term assessments. Now, at the end of the 2-year course, they'll have a whole series of these learner pathways, and it's a really useful tool for revision and a really useful tool for any adult supporting the students throughout their 2-year course to help them organise themselves and to also help with revision tasks and asks questions of how they're progressing in the course. It's all laid out there in the learner pathway, so it's a really useful reference for students, teachers and yourself as parents. So revision is an important part of being successful in any GCSE. In science we cover a huge range of topics, three separate subjects, chemistry, physics and biology, some really difficult concepts, lots of things to recall. So revision is really essential for success. Now revision is a skill that needs to be worked on, so that's what we do throughout the 2-year course. Follow a very simple cycle. Stage 1, we create revision materials, show students how to do that. Students need to get into good habits and understand what sort of revision materials work well for them. So it could be flashcards, mind maps, there's lots of different things, but we'll give students a whole range of things to try and they can select the ones that work best for them when they're coming to revise. The next bit is then they take those revision materials and complete practice questions on them. So to check their understanding, to check their recall, can they remember the key terms, can they use them correctly in context when answering a question? They need to do practice questions and they need to mark those, get feedback on them so that they can understand their strengths and their areas for improvement, which is stage 3. And then that directs their start of the cycle again. So the areas for improvement, they'll go back, look at their revision materials, amend them, create different ones, and then do practice questions on those areas that they need to improve. And this is an area where people at home can really help, providing a space for students to be able to revise, make sure they've got access to the resources, giving that bit of encouragement and support, helping them by asking questions, so quick check questions, helping them mark and check their answers to practice questions is a really important part of revision and a really good way that you can support your child throughout the GCSE course. And finally, support materials. So in the school shop and available from other outlets are revision guides. We really recommend the CGP revision guides. We think they're really good, the way they're laid out, the structure of them, they're easy to access. And alongside the revision guides, there's also workbooks, which again have those all important practice questions in and mark schemes, so students can actually test their understanding after looking at their revision guide and producing their revision resources. So there's a specific one for trilogy science, there's specific revision guides for each of the separate sciences. We really recommend getting a good quality revision guide. It will really help students organise the immense amount of work that they're going to be covering through their GCSEs for all of their subjects. So really, really useful. We have them available in the school shop, as I said, so it's really easy for students to get hold of one. I'll just highlight that I know students do have their course book or their exercise book, and they'll have several of those by the time they've finished the Science GCSE. And while they're really important and they've got lots of important information in, it's worth remembering that they are workbooks. Essentially, students are completing learning activities in there, and they're not always the best for revision. If students are going to use their exercise books, they really need to then take those exercise books and condense them down into some key notes and key facts for each of the topics they've been studying. And the revision guides really help with that process and help with the production of revision materials. So we highly recommend them. They're really useful, and the CGP ones are really nice and easy to access. So that's our recommendation, and that's it from me. Good luck throughout the GCSE science course to both you and your child. It's hard work, but hopefully it'll be really worth it, and we'll come out at the end of this with some fantastic grades and some really good opportunities for that next step after GCSE. Thank you.